Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. Before we get started, we're going to start interpretation for this meeting. And that means that we'll have two audio channels, one that'll be in English and one that'll be in Spanish. So I'm going to start the interpretation in just a moment, and then you'll need to choose which audio channel you need, either English or Spanish. The interpretation button will show up on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. And if you're joining by phone, you'll only be able to hear the audio in English. So I'm going to start it now.
Hola, en un momento vamos a iniciar la interpretación simultánea de esta reunión. Eso quiere decir que tendremos dos canales de audio, uno para inglés y el otro para español. Una vez que comience la interpretación, tendrán que elegir el canal del idioma que prefieren escuchar. El botón de interpretación aparece en la barra inferior de la pantalla y si solamente nos escuchan por teléfono, solamente escucharán la voz en inglés, a menos que tengan la aplicación de Zoom en su teléfono. Gracias.
So we will also be recording the meeting this evening. We will post the meeting recording on the website so that this information can be shared with others in the community that aren't able to join this evening. So recording has started for us. And just again, as a reminder, if you go into the bottom and look at the little globe icon, click either English or Spanish, depending on the audio channel that you need. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this community meeting to introduce you to the current engagement opportunities for the new comprehensive plan. My name is Carl Kolosna with the comprehensive plan staff team. I'm joined by my colleagues, Kayla Seibel, Nikki McDonald, Brooke Ganser, and Scott Whiteman. So we know that folks are coming to this meeting with different background information on the project and different levels of understanding about how the comprehensive plan impacts our community. So we're going to start by talking about how we're approaching this work and what has been done so far. Our purpose this evening is to introduce you to the current engagement opportunities for the comprehensive plan, walk through how to use the tools we've created for engagement, and share ways that you can engage your fellow community members on this work over the next couple of months. As we get started with some background, I invite you all, if you're willing, to share in the chat box your name, the neighborhood or community you're a part of, and share one thing that you value about the Durham community. We'll take a moment to let folks joining by phone share their responses in a few minutes. Just let me know you'd like to share by hitting *9 to raise your hand if we've got anybody on the phone here. So our work on the new comprehensive plan started in the summer of 2019. As work began, the city's equitable community engagement blueprint was being developed, and the city and county were both beginning to work towards more equitable engagement. Through early conversations with our colleagues in the Neighborhood Improvement Services Department, we established a commitment to work towards equitable engagement for the comprehensive plan based on the blueprint. So let's talk about what a comprehensive plan is and how it has and can impact equity in our community. Our comprehensive plan directs what can be built where in Durham. It guides what size and kinds of homes can be built in different parts of the community, where schools and businesses can be located, and where streets should be built. The plan acts as a blueprint for how Durham will develop today and in the future. The plan includes recommendation and guidance for big decisions that a local government might make. So how and where should farmland be created or preserved? How do we connect more residents to jobs, housing, and schools? What are Durham's infrastructure needs, like water, sewer, transportation, and other services? What kind of environmental protections should we have? How should Durham care for its existing neighborhoods and longtime residents, particularly those who have been ignored or harmed by big decisions in the past? Durham looks the way it does because previous plans and policies determined how it could grow and develop. In the past, government and private decisions about where to locate land uses, both desirable and less desirable, have not been equitable. This is not an accident and is one of the primary ways that racial discrimination is seen in our physical environment. For example, less desirable industrial land uses like incinerators, landfills, factories, and salvage yards have been placed within or near traditionally Black neighborhoods and away from traditionally white neighborhoods. At the same time, desirable land uses that are necessary for people to access daily resources like small commercial areas and parks are lacking or missing in many traditionally Black neighborhoods. Equitable access to the benefits of growth, development, and land use decisions are foundational to our current work to determine where different land uses should be located in the future. So with all of this in mind, we began this project in the fall of 2019 and winter of 2020 with the listening and learning engagement for this project. We heard from over 1,000 residents what they wanted in an ideal Durham and what else was on their mind about Durham. With all that input from residents, we asked, how do we listen to, respect, and honor the voices of residents who've been disinvested in and actively harmed by planning in the past? And how do we turn that lived experience into community goals and objectives? The community goals and objectives that were adopted by the county commissioners and city council this summer describe a clearly articulated vision from our residents for Durham's future. Now comes the hard work of translating this vision from our community into the technical planning tools that impact how land is used in our community. The new comprehensive plan will be made up of words and a map. The map will show a desired future place type for every property in the city and county. The words include policy recommendations, which will be the focus of engagement next spring. These policies will lay instructions for how the planning department and the rest of Durham local government will work to make the vision of the community goals and objectives a reality, because there are limits to how much of our community's vision can be articulated solely through the place type map. We've developed a draft community-wide place type map. The intent of this map is to apply the community's vision to actual places in our community. Our engagement over the next few months is focused on hearing from how you can better reflect the community vision in the draft map. The place type map will replace the future land use map from our 2005 comprehensive plan. Since 2005, that map has been used to guide growth, plan where new services will be needed, and make decisions about whether to approve certain kinds of new development. However, the categories in the 2005 map are very general, and they don't provide enough detail about what places should be like. The proposed place type map includes more detailed information in the place type descriptions about what new development should look like, how it should function to serve residents and workers, and how it should be served by city and county services. To close out background on the project so far, we wanted to share some highlights of the kinds of places that residents want to see come through in the community goals and objectives. Residents want all neighborhoods to have safe and easy walkable access to schools, community centers, shopping areas, restaurants, and green space integrated within and around neighborhoods to allow us to access daily needs, connect with one another, and to build relationships. Residents want to see neighborhoods change incrementally to incorporate a variety of housing options that are affordable and attainable to those with the least access to housing. Residents want to see an improved transportation network and connectivity throughout Durham by prioritizing residents who walk, bike, roll, or ride transit. Residents want to see proposed developments that preserve or restore the surrounding natural areas and promote and encourage walkability. When vacant lots in already developed areas are filled with new uses, residents want to see this development fit in with the scale of the neighborhood and provide access to daily needs. Residents want to see some of the car-oriented places, like shopping areas with large parking lots, incrementally change through the addition of buildings and retrofits of existing sites so that these places can become more walkable with safe pedestrian, bike, and transit access to and from the site. So we have a short video to share now that talks about the different pieces of the comprehensive plan. We'll have some time for questions and answers on all of this information following that video.
Hello, this is a presentation brought to you by the Durham City County Planning Department about the different pieces of the comprehensive plan. Our community is constantly changing. Think about your neighborhood. What has changed? What has stayed the same? Change in our community has impacts for residents who live in Durham today. Many residents in Durham have not benefited from this change and have been actively harmed by it. We need a better plan that can help manage this change in a way that benefits all residents. In Durham, the City County Planning Department regulates how land is used. There are rules about what each property can be used for, called zoning. These rules also regulate what developers are allowed to build. Planning decisions affect how our neighborhoods look, how we access the resources we need, and what infrastructure is needed to support life in Durham. Over time, local government has regulated land in ways that give some people more access than others. Access can mean access to better schools, jobs, transportation, or green spaces. Think about your neighborhood. Can you afford to live there? Are there grocery stores, schools, or parks that you can easily and safely get to? What's missing? What do you need more of? The rules in Durham need to be rewritten to work towards complete communities where everyone has access to the things they need, particularly those who have not had this access in the past. To start rewriting the rules, the Durham Planning Department needs your help to create a new comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan outlines a community vision in the form of policies and a map that say what should be built where in Durham. In practice, a comprehensive plan's place type map and policies are used together to check if what a developer is proposing to build matches what the community wants to see. The place type map and policies help guide decisions made by elected officials about whether development should be approved. Also, the place type map and policies can help us decide if new zoning districts should be created to match what the community wants to see and can help work towards greater access to the things we need. As our community grows and changes over time, we will need to invest in the infrastructure to sustain our neighborhoods. Staff will use the place type map to understand where future water, sewer, or transportation demand might be based on what kind of development is expected where, and plan for new or upgraded infrastructure projects. Think of the comprehensive plan as a roadmap to the future we want to build together. How would you shape Durham? Thank you so much for watching. Please visit engagedurham.com to learn more about the Durham Comprehensive Plan and get involved today.
Great, thank you. So before we begin going into some more detail about place types in the map, we wanted to pause and see if anybody has any questions on the information that we've shared so far. If you have any questions, please let us know in the chat. You can also raise your hand and we can turn on the function to let you speak. So we'll see if there are any questions now. Again, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or feel free to put a question into the chat. We'll also have plenty of time for questions and discussion at the end as well. Okay, well, it looks like we don't have any questions right now at this moment. Like we said, we'll have plenty of time at the end for more discussion and questions. So we're going to shift to talking about the place type map and how to engage. And then again, we'll have a discussion. So I'm going to turn things over to Kayla for this next section. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kayla Seibel, and I will be walking through the second part of our agenda. We'll transition to talking about some place type examples, discuss how we use place types in practice, and then we'll show specifically how you can provide feedback on the place type map and place type guide. So generally, we anticipate that some areas in Durham are less likely to change or will not experience a lot of change over the next couple of decades. Some examples of places like these are parks or protected green spaces, as shown on the left. This is of a park in Durham, or established residential areas or neighborhoods, as shown on the right, where there are small lots and many different property owners. You may still see some renovations or changes to the outsides of these buildings over time, or see the addition of smaller homes behind existing homes. But in these two examples, we don't expect large-scale physical changes within neighborhoods. But we do anticipate that some areas in Durham will experience more change over the next couple of decades, and we want to plan for that. Places that are more likely to change in Durham may include land without existing buildings, as shown on the left. This is of a field or a forested area. The image in the middle is of a large parking lot, and the image on the right is of an older shopping center that are more suburban in character, again with those large parking lots or large spaces with room for new buildings. So to demonstrate the concepts we've been talking about and what we're engaging on this fall and how it applies to the real world, here is an example of a place in Durham that could see significant changes over time. This is a Google Map view of Oxford Commons area at North Roxborough Street and Old Oxford Road. This area currently provides goods and services to Durham residents, and we can see that there are existing restaurants, big box stores, groceries, and other shops. This area of Durham is served by bus lines with bus stops, sidewalks in some places, and is served by city water and sewer. This could be an area where some of the lots here see the addition of new buildings or renovations over time. These two images show the Oxford Commons area. You can see large properties with large parking areas and standalone stores or large strip malls, including Trosa, Burlington Clothing Store, and Food Lion in the picture on the left. And on the right is a view of North Roxborough Street, and there's an uncovered bus stop on the right. This is also an area with a lot of impervious surfaces. This means that land that is covered in either concrete or asphalt, where rainwater cannot easily pass through the soil. This can cause flooding when it rains. So some of the lots have buildings or structures on them now and have minimal green space. So any new development in this area wouldn't typically require clear cutting or a forest or disrupting protected natural areas like you would see in places on the edges of town. So when we think about places like this and how it might change in the future and that we need to plan for that, we take a few considerations, including the things I mentioned about existing conditions, what patterns we're seeing in development recently, and how the sites might be served or already served by infrastructure and services. We also consider community input and engagement that may have been done in these places in the past and what residents want to see there. But a lot of times we're not always sure what residents want to see, which is why we have an initial draft place type map for Durham residents to share feedback on specific places and geographies that you know because you live and experience these places every day. Specifically for Oxford Commons, as an example, our team looked at how this area currently has these large stores, parking lots, restaurants. It has access to bus service. And because of these characteristics, this area could see change in the future that looks like more buildings on the already, what are currently large parking areas. So what that looks like on the map, and we'll show you the map. It's called a transit opportunity area in a purple color. This describes a primarily commercial area today that has the potential to become more walkable, accessible to nearby residents, and serves the surrounding neighborhoods with a focus on bus connections to get from here to other places. Don't try to read this slide, there's a lot on there, but we just wanted to remind you that the place type map is also accompanied by a place type guide, which provides details on what the place type is, a snapshot of the description for this transit opportunity area on the English on the left and Spanish on the right. The place type on the map influences what can happen in this area. And the place type that's assigned right now is called the transit opportunity area. This would mean a lot of change, and that kind of change may bring buildings that include commercial and residential that are well connected by sidewalks, bike paths, and bus service. It should be dense with buildings set closer together, but designed in a way that serves residents who are using this as a transfer point and seeks to minimize negative impacts on surrounding neighborhoods. So if this kind of change is not what the community wants to see, then there are other place types that might fit here. One of them could be the suburban commercial place type, which looks similar to what is currently there now, with the opportunity for newer buildings to be added to the underused parking areas, but maybe less compact with buildings a little farther apart. We still envision this kind of place improving over time in terms of sidewalk connectivity and green space, but these will be smaller changes. If this is something you have thoughts on, we'd love your input on the map. And we also have discussion time at the end of this meeting. If you have thoughts on that. So for this round of fall engagement, we want the community to give us feedback on the map and the guide. This is a big opportunity in this process for residents to have a first say in what areas in Durham should look like in the future before a project is proposed and before an application is being reviewed by City Council or the County Commissioners to consider new development. So staff has relied heavily on past engagement to make this first draft, but we need your help to understand what changes we should make and if we're going in the right direction or the wrong direction. This is just a screenshot of the map, and we'll walk through this in a moment. So just another note about the place type categories. Durham is a big place, and I already saw in the chat that there's somebody who is interested in the northern parts, the more rural parts of Durham. Durham is a big place. It covers both the city and the county. So in general, the city is towards the middle section of the map, and the county covers the outer areas. Our places range from very dense, urban, walkable, to rural and agricultural and large open spaces. We have 20 different place types in this guide that are supposed to encompass the broad range of places, but still give us the broad categories that we have in our community. Another part that helps us understand how to guide new development in the comprehensive plan are the policies. So I've talked a lot about the way buildings look and how they're set far apart, and if there is large parking lots. But there are things that are important in our community that we cannot easily map, and they're crucial to guiding how development should occur and not just what it looks like. So policies consider things like how development should fit into the surrounding area, who the development is serving, and other details like street trees, sidewalks, green space, environmental protection, transportation. So basically, the place types provide the general idea of what different areas should be in the future, and we get more specific as we go along in the planning process with the policies. We're currently working with groups of residents and staff to begin brainstorming those policies now. So in the spring, we will be back engaging the community on those policies, like I said, in the spring 2022. I'm going to pause for a second if there's a question that we can answer right now. If not, let me know and I will continue.
Hey, Kayla, we have a question in our Q&A box from Tammy.
I see that now. I'm going to read it out loud for folks on the phone. It says, historically established neighborhoods in Durham have been primarily occupied by Black or African American citizens. The well-established neighborhoods could also benefit from a revitalization effort. Has the decision been made final that little to no changes will be completed in these areas? Great question. So there hasn't been a decision. This is an engagement process where we are interested in hearing from neighborhoods, and particularly neighborhoods that have been ignored or harmed by planning in the past, about what residents would like to see there, things that would benefit the community. So this map is the first part of trying to outline what that would be and hear from residents if we are missing the mark, in more detail about what should go there. Carl, did you want to add?
Yeah, I'll add just a little bit.
Sure.
It's a really good question, and some of the examples that Kayla has shown today really are just examples. The short answer is that no, final decisions have not been made about where a lot or a little of change is going to happen. So this is really the purpose of this engagement, the ones that's going to be happening now and will be happening through the rest of next year, to engage the community and talk to people about what level of change or how much change people might be comfortable with or are looking for. So that's a really good question.
Great. Yeah, and thanks for getting my attention. It's hard for me to see both the chat and the Q&A, so I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to transition just very briefly to showing you how to engage on the map. You may already have ideas about areas that you live nearby, and so we want to make sure that you know how to use the tools that we have online. Okay, let me transition here. And we will make sure you have all these links in the chat and sent by email so you know where to find everything. So engagement this fall is focused on hearing about the types of places you would like to see in your neighborhoods in the future. Again, place types describe the kinds of places, and we want to see them on a map. It's very geographic based. So this screen is showing the comprehensive plan social pinpoint website. This is our engagement site where you can see what phase the project is in and where to provide input. Again, the focus is on the place type map and the place type guide. And just scrolling down here, you can see where you can register for the community meetings. You are part of our community meeting 3, the North Durham focus. As we get the recordings up online, we will also post them here so you can share those for residents who may have missed the meeting. Scrolling down, these are our engagement buttons. These are the 3 areas you can engage on in this phase. We have the place type map. You can also download a very large PDF here if you'd rather interact with the map that way. Otherwise, we have an interactive map to show you today. We have the guide, the place type guide. So if you are interested in giving us feedback on the types of places that we've mapped, you can let us know there. And then here is a resident engagement toolkit, which includes downloads for all of the information that we're showing and ways to engage residents who don't have access to online tools or prefer to give feedback in different ways. So we have ways for you to help us engage other residents if you're interested. So let's get started on the map. And again, we are recording this, so if you need to slow anything down or speed anything up, that will be available soon. So this interactive map means that you can zoom in and out and read about each proposed place type and add comments. This is just a splash screen. It gives instructions on what to do, and you can dismiss it by clicking this here that says, I agree to the above terms and conditions. It just means that you've read the top part here, and then click OK. Once you click the box and click OK, you will first see the map. It will be zoomed all the way out so that you can see all of Durham County. On the right-hand side, there's a legend. This legend includes all the draft place types. They are hyperlinked, so you can click on each one to open the place type guide description and read more about what they mean. For example, this transit opportunity area that we looked at earlier. Click on that, it opens a new tab where you can see the one-pager for the English and the Spanish. Now back to the map. The other legend items include an urban growth boundary and a future growth area. The urban growth boundary is this outer line here. It's like in this dark red color. This is a line that staff is proposing generally around the more urban or suburban areas, that staff is proposing city water and sewer not be extended past this line so that we can keep areas in the county mostly rural and protect our environmental resources out here. Future growth areas are generally adjacent to this urban growth boundary. There are these black lines that are shaded here. These are places that could see some change, could see significant change if the city decides to add water and sewer infrastructure or fire service in those areas in the future. So we see those as big decision points for future growth if that's decided, if that's the direction the city and the county want to go in. So on the left-hand side, just wanted to cover some more tools. There's a plus and a minus button that you can scroll. You can use your mouse, you can double click. You have to be pretty closely zoomed in if you want to add a comment on the map. So just keep that in mind. There's a printer button on the left-hand side here. Looks like a little printer. You can export a PDF of whatever view you're looking at. So if you are interested in a particular part of Durham, you can zoom in pretty far and just print that area that you're interested in. There's also an option to change the background of the map if you'd like to view the aerial imagery or something else. And there are some other helpful tools on this side here, but those are the basics. And we want to make sure we cover adding feedback. So to find a location based on an address, you can use this address bar here to type in a location. So just for an example, let's say you're interested in what City Hall is designated as. You can type in 101 City Hall Plaza and press enter, and it will zoom the map in to that property. So you can see here, this is the outline of City Hall. When you click on any property, there's a pop-up that appears, and this pop-up also has a link to the place type guide. If you prefer looking at the place type guide here, again, you can always look at the individual place types here. You can also click this button to add a comment, and this will open a short survey. So in this survey, you can choose to comment on a specific property's place type. Let's say you have thoughts on that City Hall is designated in the downtown place type, so you can tell us what you think about that. Or you can give us a comment about a general area. Let's say you're interested in a larger area than just one property. Maybe it's a neighborhood, maybe it's an intersection. You can click here and a series of questions will pop up. One of them is very important. Describe the general area you'd like to comment on. We would love to know specifically what area you're talking about so that we can make edits and changes to the map based on your feedback. So being specific is really helpful. The other questions are general, open-ended questions. If you just want to tell us what you love about your neighborhood, what you want to preserve, what you want to protect, that's great information for us. If you want to see less of something in your community, if there are development or changes that are concerning to you, that's super important for us to hear too. Once you answer as many or as few questions as you'd like, there is a short demographic survey on the next page. We'd love to know who is taking these surveys, who is engaging on the map, so we know who we're missing and who we need to do a better job at reaching. When you submit your comment, it will appear on the map, but it will not have your demographic information. That will remain private. But what's so great about this map is that when you click around, you can see these, as soon as it loads, you can see these bright green or bright blue dots here, and you can see what other residents have had to say on particular areas. So you can click on one here. Once it loads, I might have to zoom in a bit. There you go. And you can see what other neighbors and other residents have had to say about an area. So it will show up pretty immediately after you submit a comment. So when you're done, you can click this home button here, this little house, and it will take you all the way back to the full county view, especially if you're zooming around and lose your place. I find that's a helpful tool as well. So that is how you navigate the place type map and add a comment. Now we'll transition to just showing you a little bit about the place type guide. I promise you this part is a little bit easier and straightforward. So going back to our engagement buttons here, if you click the place type guide link button here, it will take you to a page where you can download the place type guide. You can take a very short survey and you can read these drop downs of the different place types if you like to read it that way. This survey here is again open-ended. Any or all of the place types you're interested in letting us know what you think. There is a very short survey here. And finally, the resident engagement toolkit. If you'd like to help us engage other residents in this work, we have provided several resources, including 2 videos. One is the video you saw this evening about the pieces of the comprehensive plan. And the second one is a walkthrough, a recorded walkthrough that I just gave in a video form. We have several handouts for what a comprehensive plan is, what are place types. You can help us share this engagement opportunity. We have bookmarks, postcards, the flyers for these community meetings if you'd like to get more folks involved in the upcoming ones. And then if you'd like to download any of the surveys and administer them in person to your friends and neighbors, we also have options for downloading this information and helping folks walk through the map and providing input. That is very quick. I know this is a lot of information, but we just wanted to make sure you saw this and can come back to it. Are there any questions before we move on to the discussion part of this? Stop sharing. All right. With that, I'll hand it over to Scott.
Thank you, Kayla. Before I start, I just wanted to acknowledge there was a question in the chat that I provided an answer, but I want to read it so that everyone can make sure they hear the question and the answer. So there was a question said, I don't understand the outer edges of suburban tier being designated urban growth boundary. The development considerations are very different. So I think for those of any of you all who are familiar with our current comprehensive plan, we have, it includes these designations called development tiers. There is a suburban tier and a rural tier, which serves basically the same purpose as the urban growth boundary. Under our current policies, the city will not extend utilities into the rural tier. And so the urban growth boundary would extend the same policy to the new comprehensive plan. The tiers also generally describe the kind of development that will happen. In our new comprehensive plan, we're using the place types with their more detailed descriptions of what future development may look like to take the place of those parts of the development tiers. So I hope to the asker of that question that that answers it. So today we've discussed at a high level what the comprehensive plan is, why it's important, and specifically about the place types, which is the focus of the engagement that will be going on through the end of January. Kayla just shared with us a walkthrough of the map tool. Now we'd like to spend a little bit of time basically having a condensed version of the sort of discussion that we hope the tool will help facilitate. Our discussion today will be focused on the rough area of North Durham. Don't worry too much about the exact boundary of what is North Durham. It's just a general reference. But basically, we're meaning the areas that are north of Interstate 85. And we also understand this is a really big area. And based on the comments we saw in the chat from the beginning of the meeting, we have folks from Bragtown, which is closer to the center of the city, and we have folks from Bahama, which is up in the far northern portions of Durham County. So to get us grounded, I'd like to encourage everyone to think about the space and land that comes to mind when you think of North Durham. Maybe if you like, you can imagine you're a bird, or if you prefer, you can be a drone in the air and looking down on the land and space below you. What do you see when you look down as you move around the area? What patterns are there and what sticks out in terms of how the land is being used? There's some very tall buildings, some shorter, some closer together, some more far apart. There are places with little or no buildings at all. Some places inland may have changed, maybe a lot in recent memory. So to start, we'd like to ask a question, and we'll be dropping this in the chat as well. The question to get us started is, what changes to how land in your community is being used have you seen? What change would you like to see? And the more specific you can be, the more helpful it will be. And you can feel free to answer in the chat or to raise your hand. We can call on you if you'd like to speak. So we have more affordable housing, less condos, more sidewalks. Even more sidewalks. Or bike lanes. No, there's a question of how the ADUs have been accounted for in this plan. It's a good question. Oh, let's see. We'll get back to that question in a second. Another high school might be helpful. So for ADUs, for those who don't know, that stands for accessory dwelling unit. That would be a small apartment that is typically be placed behind a house. They're currently allowed in most Durham neighborhoods. And so as Carl and Kayla were discussing earlier, there are areas where we, like established residential neighborhoods, where we'd expect very small amounts of change, but some of those small changes may include a few property owners building accessory dwelling units in their backyard. Let's see, a couple other things, more affordable housing. I think that would help the other homeowners that have been in the community and have land to build. Kia, I'm guessing that comment was about accessory dwelling units. We have less gentrification. From the Q&A, proper sidewalks for residents of Oxford Manor along Oxford Road. Currently, multiple wheelchair-bound residents have to go to the street when it rains and the paths get muddy. More queer-friendly spaces. Let's see, there's a question, there are so many zoning changes being approved. Is there a chance of slowing down on that until this process is completed? So unfortunately, it's very difficult for local governments to, for good or bad, to place moratoriums on moratoria, I think is the correct word, on folks asking for development approvals. But we hope that, I believe, as this plan gets developed, it'll hopefully provide better guidance for both the city council and the county commission, and for us as planning staff on all those zoning cases that are coming through the process. So we have another one, traffic lights that control the traffic patterns better along Roxborough Road. Let's see, well, feel free if anyone still has questions about or answers to that question, feel free, but here's another one. What do you want to see more or less of in your community? Rent assistance for undocumented folks. So we have nearly every tree has been removed along Hebron Road. That's how new developments emerge. Is this necessary? And that's something we heard, and someone mentioned that in the chat earlier in the meeting, that preservation of tree canopy is really important. And perhaps having new developments preserve more of the tree canopy is something folks would like to see. So there's a question, is there an expectation planning department and city council will follow this plan rather than granting zoning changes as it currently does, since it will be new and more specific? So yeah, that's absolutely the purpose of the new comprehensive plan, is to provide guidance to us as the department and for the city council and the county commission on zoning changes. There's certainly not an absolute requirement that the city council follow the plan, but a lot of the decisions they're making now are based on our comprehensive plan from 2005. And so this one is going to be, as you noted, Susan, newer and more specific, and we hope it will provide better guidance with city council. And it's up to city council and the county commission to adopt the plan. So they are adopting it as their guide for those sorts of decisions. See, we have more transportation options is one of the things. Tax assistance. Required cosmetic improvements to apartments in North Durham. Let's see, here's one more question. Has the quality of life in your neighborhood changed? Well, nicer bus stops that are covered. That's something that we definitely hear a lot. And really more specifically, has the quality of life in your neighborhood changed for the better or for the worse? If zoning changes are changing the quality of life for the worse. Then we have a question. Does the comprehensive planning intend to address the lack of broadband service in much of North Durham? That's certainly, as we develop the policies, that is something we've heard a lot, is that broadband service is particularly bad in the rural parts of Northern Durham. And so that is something that our policy working groups that are developing those policies are looking at. If that's something that we can do, and if so, what are the options that we have and what would it take? Seems that we were going away from so many evictions, but now I'm seeing mattresses and items on the curbs again. All right, well, thank you everyone for being willing to participate and for providing your answers. We will capture all these from the chat and include it in the feedback that we're taking for this entire phase of engagement on the place type map. Oh, we've got one more before I move on. Or maybe I stopped too soon. It seems as though the road infrastructure significantly lags new development. Hebron and Danube needs a traffic light now, not later. Currently changing due to zoning and not sure if it's good or bad yet. I can say more traffic lights are needed just so I can get out of my community. Let's see, we've got a question. Can the city annex properties currently zoned as county but still not provide water and sewage? 27712 zip code after annexation to city. So typically no, if the city annexes property, you have to make all city services available that are available to every resident. And so that would include water and sewer. But there are some special cases, particularly very occasionally the legislature, state legislature will annex property into the city. And so there have some different rules. So the ask her that question. I don't know, we may need to chat offline if there's a specific issue that you're looking into. So we have internet access in Bahama and Rougemont is definitely an issue. Similar to the broadband issues in North Durham. All right. Well, thanks again. It's if anything comes to mind before the meeting's over, feel free to place it in the chat, and we can capture that and include it in our feedback. But I want to thank you so much, everyone, for a great discussion today. We just have a few quick items to go through as we close out for the day. As a reminder, this phase of engagement will continue through January, up until January 31st. Once this phase of engagement closes, we'll be compiling everything we heard from all formats and working to revise the place type map. The next phase of engagement will begin next spring and will be a combination of more engagement on the map as well as on the draft comprehensive plan policies. The planning team has committed to City Council and County Commissioners that we understand who we are hearing from as we do all of our engagement for the comprehensive plan. This is important so that we can know who we're hearing from and also who we aren't hearing from. So we can adjust our engagement and outreach approaches as we go to fill gaps to ensure that this work is reflective of the full diversity of our community. Our team is sharing a link to a demographic survey in the chat right now. We would really appreciate it if you would take a couple minutes to fill that out so we can understand who we're reaching in these meetings. Thank you. As part of the demographic survey, we'd also like to hear any thoughts, feedback, reflections, or recommendations you have for how this meeting went. We are committed to taking feedback seriously, and we'll make changes and adjustments as we go if we hear things that are or aren't working as well as they could. And that's very important to us because we have several more of these meetings scheduled in December and January. As we mentioned, a recording of the meeting will be made available on the city YouTube page. We'll send a link to that as a follow-up. Finally, we'd like to leave you with a last plug for getting involved in this process. For getting folks you know involved as well, our team is dropping a link to the place type map that Kayla walked us through. Tell your friends, your family, your neighbors, even people you barely know. Take a look at the map yourself. Bring the resident engagement toolkit to a group that you know and encourage them to explore it and give feedback as well. We're also providing a link to the resident engagement toolkit, which has links and downloadable options for everything you need to get involved. So thank you again.
So that'll close out our meeting for tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Again, we'll have recordings of this and there's more meetings to be coming in the future, but have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.